Hello and welcome to week 3 of HIM250, often known as the inpatient coding capstone. And remember that we are helping you obtain the knowledge and the skills required to do medical coding in a hospital for inpatient services. And part of the coding process includes when to query. A lot of people feel that asking a question, asking for clarification or a piece of missing information makes them look weak or incompetent. But in medical coding, it is actually required by law. When there is missing or incomplete information, ambiguous or inconsistent information, or contradictory information in the patient record, you are required to ask the physician who wrote the documentation for the missing or information or clarification. This is very, very important because accuracy of the codes is number one. The other thing I want you to remember is that medical coders are part of the care team. We stand with the physicians and the nurses and the other clinicians because we are working together. They're doing specific work, and it's our job to get them paid, number one. Okay. Plus, of course, we have other reporting, to agencies like CMS and the State Health Department and Joint Commission. But really, our biggest impact on the hospital is without us doing our job properly, the hospital does not receive the revenue, the income, the money it has earned. That's like you doing your work all week and not getting your paycheck, or getting only part of your paycheck because somebody messed up. And in this case, we don't want you to mess up because we don't want you to be the one responsible for things not happening the way they should. So remember that it is part of your job to query the physician when the documentation is not complete or accurate or clear. Okay. The answer in real life is not to report an unspecified code. Now, of course, in inpatient coding, that's going to mostly apply to your diagnosis codes, which, remember, the diagnosis codes provide the information about the medical necessity for providing the procedure, service, or treatment. So what are you going to do? You're gonna just put anything or put an unspecified code and then have the claim come back unpaid, or maybe you then need to do it accurately and then just delay payment, or maybe it gets denied, and this is something that I do not approve of. I am totally against. Is wrong, very wrong, which would be some facilities just go ahead and send the bill to the patient, making the patient pay out of pocket because the medical coding professional did not do his or her job correctly, accurately, properly. You don't want that happening to you, do you? Do you want to have to put your hand in your pocket after all the money that you pay to the insurance company, the third-party payer, every month to have the policy? And then just to be saying, well, this claim was denied, so you have to pay it, without asking any questions, really? Because I ask questions, And you know what? They did research several years ago. And the fact is that 85% of denied claims were found to be the result of coding errors. So, and you know, just to let you know, I'm kind of old, all right? So what I'm going to tell you is everything that goes around comes around. It's absolutely true. It can take an hour, it can take a week, it can take 10 years. But that energy, that fact, I have seen it proven time and time again. So do you want to have to be putting your own hand in your own pocket to pay for something that legitimately the insurance company should pay for, but the insurance company is not paying for it because the coder made a mistake? Not me, honey. So let's start with no unspecified codes. All right. In CPT, we have rare unspecified codes, and then you know that documentation must be submitted along with the claim. In ICD-10 PCS, I love this code set. You know why? Because there's no such thing as an unspecified code. You can't do it. You can't build the code without having all the information. So doesn't that bring us back full circle to when to query? When there's missing or incomplete information. Remember, physicians do not write their documentation for us, the coders. They write it for continuity of care. They're busy, they're in a hurry, yeah. And they forget. You know what? It's the downside to being human. So you have to be the one to backstop them. You have to be there to say, oops, you said this patient has a fracture. What specific part of the bone was fractured? What type of fracture? We need to know in order to assign the correct code. And you know what else? They need to know for continuity of care as well. So you are doing the physician a favor by alerting them to a missing piece of information. Okay. Now, sometimes, and I have seen this, the information in the notes is ambiguous or consistent. In other words, yes, maybe the patient has this, maybe or maybe not. Okay. Here's the example. Procedure notes state a single lead pacemaker was inserted. However, the equipment list states the pacemaker was a dual lead. And yes, the equipment list will be in the patient record. Okay, so what was it? Single or double? You want to guess? We do not assume in healthcare. Send a query. Ask the physician. You got to get it right. And I want you to always have in the back of your mind, what if this was your husband, your wife, your child, your parent, someone who you love more than anything else in the world was the patient? You need to know that the documentation is accurate, so continuity of care can be accurate. That's the only thing we care about is accuracy. Well, maybe not the only thing, but it is number one with a bullet. Okay. Contradictory. The first paragraph states patient denies any cough or chest congestion. However, the last paragraph states the patient was prescribed Tessalon, a cough suppressant. Oh, that's just to remind you, that's why we made you take pharmacology. Okay. All right. So you may sit there and think, oh, come on, you're making this up. I did an audit. I promise you, on my dog's life. I did an audit last summer, and the physician wrote in the documentation, it is unknown whether this patient is pregnant or not. That sounds reasonable. Okay. except the patient was an 8-year-old little boy. So when I brought this up in the audit, I was told, oh yeah, well, the EHR automatically puts that in. We have no control over that. Well, that's unacceptable. Lord knows what is going to be in that documentation. And just so you know, when external audits happen, you think they're going to say, oh, sure, okay, the computer did it on its own. Yeah, that's a great excuse. Which prison should we take you to? How many millions of dollars will we fine you for this, I'm sorry, garbage documentation? This is not what is good for the patient. This is not what is good for the facility. This is not good. The reason we have documentation is to make sure the correct details are there so they can be followed up upon. And I can assure you, without ever meeting this patient, that 8-year-old boy was not pregnant. Yeah. Okay. I am not exaggerating, sadly, very, very sadly. I am not exaggerating. These things happen. And you are the backstop. You are the ones that are reading this documentation with knowledge and intent to make certain that you can pull out the information necessary to accurately code this encounter. And it doesn't matter whether you notice things that are wrong that directly relate to codes or not. This is part of your job by federal law. You can email me if you need me to document that, but I'm telling you the truth. Okay. All right. Now, there's a legal way to write a query, and this is very important because we are the individuals who have our hand on the revenue tap. Okay, we do our jobs well. Proper reimbursement comes into the facility. Everybody has money, including that for your raise. Okay. All right. We do our jobs badly. There is not sufficient money coming in. You get no raise. John over there is getting laid off. And on top of it, auditors are coming in, and this is going to cost millions of dollars. Plus somebody's going to prison or jail. Okay. No, that's a lot of responsibility. Well, yes. Okay. So the legality of the query is 100% focused on reimbursement. What that means is you cannot tell the physician in the query what you think the answer might be or should be or is. Okay? It's good. You need to use your critical thinking skills. We absolutely know that. We've actually put you through that. But there's a point where we have to stop at critical thinking to not make assumptions or guesses or any of that. It has to be documented, and it has to be documented by the attending physician. So when we write a query, you can say, did you mean to say this was a spiral fracture? Did you mean to say this was the left leg? No, 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 no. You need to say, you start, of course, by telling them the name of the patient, the medical record number, yada, yada, yada. So he or she knows what in heaven's name you're talking about. Remember, physicians see what, 10, 20 patients a day. Okay. But once we're on the same page, the same patient, right? Once we're there, we have to ask in a non-informative way. What that means is you must ask open-ended questions. And the easiest way to do that is to give them a multiple choice question and say, and you take this right out of your code book, okay? And say, you documented that this patient had a fracture. Was the fracture A, a spiral fracture, B, a closed fracture, C, an open fracture, D, whatever, okay? And then not only is that easiest for the physician, but you're being very specific in the information you need to know without leading the physician to an answer. The reason for this is we must avoid leading the physician to an answer that will falsely increase reimbursement. Okay. So if the procedure was A, the reimbursement might be $1,500, but if the procedure was B, the reimbursement might be $2,500. And if the reimbursement was C, it might be $500. Okay. Now, this is information you can find, but it's not readily available, and you're probably not thinking about it. And that's good, that's proper, that's right. Okay. We do not code for the money. We code for accuracy, and then the money comes as appropriate. Okay. So you want to make sure that you are not wink, wink, nudge, nudge, doctor, if you answer this, you're going to get more money than if you answer that. Okay. The only thing on our minds, the only thing in our documentation is the truth, the accurate accounting of what happened. And the reimbursement will flow as it needs to legally and ethically. Okay. So you just gotta, okay, well, when I go to this anatomic site in the ICD-10-CM book, it's giving me 3 different choices. It might be open or closed. It might be spiral or fragmented or crushing. I don't know. Okay. Because of course it's going to be different for every bone, right? So just like, I don't know which code to report. Is it the left or the right? Was the approach percutaneous or percutaneous endoscopic? I don't know. So you write a query and you ask and you provide all of the choices. Okay. Simple as that. You can only use what is there in the documentation. And if it's insufficient, remember the doctor does not know anything about coding. They do not know what details we need to identify a specific code. So therefore, we are going to give them all the options and let them choose what's accurate. And that's what you're going to ask for. Okay. And remember, they cannot respond to you verbally. You cannot stop the doctor in the hallway and say, here, look at my iPad, look at this. Can you tell me what it is? They must enter the details into the patient record. And then and only then can you go and code it. Okay. That's pretty straightforward, right? All right. So here's an example of a situation where you can do an open-ended query. Which metatarsal bone was fractured? Okay. Or you can do a multiple choice query, which says which metatarsal bone was fractured, first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Okay. Like I said, you don't have to make this up. Just take it right out of, oh, I can't decide which code to choose because I don't have that detail. Stay away from that unspecified, or stay away from, well, in ICD-10 PCS, there is no unspecified. So you have to have the information. Okay. All right. Okay, this is so important. And, you know, by the way, in school, the students who query, who ask questions of the instructor, I don't quite understand this, I didn't understand that. The fact of the matter is that those students are not a bother. I love it when students ask questions, but those students do better because when you understand the material, you can actually process it accurately. And doesn't take 2 minutes, you know, just, oh, I'm not sure about this. Shoot an email. You'll get a response within 24, 48 hours at the most. Okay. All right. Documentation and coding standards, chapter 4 in your CIC book. Remember, that's the review book you got from APA, which is the review book for the National Certification Exam. Oddly, with the same name as the book, CIC, Certified Inpatient Coder. Yes? Oh, yes. All right. Then you're going to take the quiz. Okay. And then you're going to analyze the quiz, whichever questions you got wrong. You need to analyze it, look at the correct answer, look at what you got wrong, figure out where you went wrong, what you need to learn so you can get it right the next time. Okay. And that's how we build your knowledge and we fill in any knowledge gaps or skill gaps. Okay. Okay. There's some extra weekly stuff we always put in the course, and you will find that complying with medical record documentation requirement. Yeah, okay. Evaluation and management services, that's CPT. But, you know, when you work in a hospital, in inpatient, you may find that you also have to do CPT coding. Why? Because in a hospital, remember, the emergency department is an outpatient facility. Most hospitals these days have outpatient, also known as same-day surgery centers. Those get reported with CPT. You also will need your CPT skills for reporting for any hospitalists. Those are physicians that do not have an outside office, but are actually on salary in the hospital. And we have to report that as well. And then, of course, ICD-10 PCS. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. You got questions? I got answers. I promise. Okay. You email me. I will email you back with answers. And then you can print that out and use that as a study guide. Okay. Or we can set up an appointment to talk on the phone. We can set up an appointment for one-on-one Zoom or FaceTime. I don't think anybody uses Skype anymore, but I could do Skype if you need to. Okay. I'm here to support you. I am your coach. You are the ace player. Let's go to the Olympics. In this case, get that certification on your resume. Okay. We love it. And then a job. All right. I am here for you. Email me whenever you have a question. I don't want you to ever hesitate, okay? I'm here for you, seriously.